Thank you very much, Miguel. And I think this raises a lot of questions, and you start to reflect, especially about this, when are you an older worker? I am for sure an older worker. I'm much older than Miguel. But it is, of course, different in different cultures. And when we heard from Korea, and the survey you did, that the workers themselves, they want to continue, a large amount of workers want to continue as long as possible. And do we push the definition when you are an older worker? I don't know if you have any reflections on something else that Miguel mentioned from the study. So please feel free to comment or ask him questions, or read the very comprehensive book and send questions to him by mail. Susanne.
Good morning. I have questions to both. Maybe I needed to wake up, I don't know, but then I enjoyed both presentations, and it really was a surprise for me that ILO had adopted a recommendation on equal treatment of older workers already 35 years ago. Yeah, so you were very forward-looking. And then, as I got to know from your presentation, you also had some reports or further studies having been prepared for the International Labour Conference. But in general, I would be very interested how do you follow up such a recommendation, as it is not a convention which has a supervisory mechanism within the ILO. So do you have a conference every 2 years, or how can you see what is happening with this recommendation? This is my question to you, because I found it so interesting. And then Miguel, when I entered the room this morning, the film was, I watched the film, yes, twice, as it was shown twice, and then I said, yeah, it's great that this study is ready, as we talked already about the study. And I found it quite interesting that you could collect information from 73 public employment services all over the world. And yesterday, when I did my presentation, or when I prepared my presentation myself, I thought the context is so different. It's not only the development state of the public employment service itself, but also the world of work they are serving in a country. And I found it striking that you are developing an approach of peer groups according to the development state of a public employment service. I would be interested whether you also looked at the grouping public employment services. There are common core services, but there might be differences. For example, when a public employment service works in a country with a very high share of informal employment, then the function and the tasks might be a bit different from a public employment service in Germany, or where you have an incredibly high share of low qualified or non-skilled with low education compared to Canada and other countries. So there I would like to get a bit more information. Thanks.
Let's start with Michael and the first question.
Thank you very much for your question. Yes, recommendations, as I said, are guidelines. So they guide member states in, when they try to develop their own systems or legislation or policies. How does ILO follow? Normally, we have what we call the survey of, it's a survey that is undertaken every 4 years on different subject matters. Therefore, all recommendations that and conventions that relate to that subject matter would be reviewed in terms of implementation, the practice, as well as experiences in member states. So surveys are sent to member states to fill in. I mean, the questionnaires are sent to fill in so that then a survey is undertaken to give a general overview of what is happening, whether the state of things, the developments are such that they have overtaken the relevance of the convention or recommendation, and then what needs to be done. Also, at various conferences, you have different topics being discussed based on the priorities set, and normally conventions and recommendations are reviewed in terms of the practice. The third way is ILO's technical assistance to member states. In most cases, the development of legislation, policies that ILO supports member states with would also draw on the recommendations and the conventions.
Okay. Thank you. And Miguel?
Thanks for the question, Susanne. Yeah, you're right. I mean, one of the biggest challenges of making this study was to make any kind of comparability between the public employment services because of the very different role they play in their labor markets. When we set up this typology I was talking about, which was as a kind of first step to bring up the topic of clustering, okay? We want to animate you to think about it. We made a very basic one, which was defining the number of functions, and we said comprehensive would be if public employment services have a combination of 5 or 6 functions assigned as a duty. Functions being things like they pay out labor market benefits, they have labor migration information services, they have active labor market programs. So very, very generic and broad ones. And then we also define the range of services. And comprehensive there, so the most developed one would be if they offer more than 80% of the services that are required after a specific function. So under labor market, labor migration services, would that be, for example, are they just giving information to people who want to come to the country, or are they giving information to people that want to leave the country, or are they even giving information to returners, or are they even actively asking returners to come back? Are they adjusting it to the labor market situation right now, like for example in Germany with the refugee inflow? So, and in this group, for example, in the most developed group, we have countries as different as Austria and China. So what does this typology tells us? It tells us, okay, they have both have a comprehensive range of services, and they offer quite a bit of services, but it doesn't tell us much about what they do with them, whether the clients are satisfied with it, and how sophisticated it is when it comes to the impact it has on the labor market. So what I'm trying to say is that it's not enough to have a very basic typology. What we need is to dig more into the topic, into the typology clusters, and to set them up according to topics. So that's why I said it's important to make a typology of public employment services always according to a topic, not a generic one like we tried here now, but to pick a different topic and say we want to talk about aging workers. How developed is the public employment service in servicing aging workers, and then make a typology there, and from there take different peer groups. Does that more or less answer what you wanted to know? Or? Yeah, yeah. So we need to invest as waves. I think that's the recommendation, at least we have for coming out of the study, to invest into typologies and to invest into peer group forming.
Thank you. Any other question? We have one, Gisem, in the back.
Hi. I had a chance to take a look at the study because I was in the secretariat, and I little know the past of this study, and its range is very broad, and it includes active labor market conditions, passive, and even the mobile implementation of the PES. And I know it's very hard to make this kind of valuable assets from this kind of international organization, but is it possible to make this study in regular base, or even not only with only statistic base, maybe without analysis? I don't know, is it logic or not? What?
The Waves has decided on one of their management board meetings in the past that we are doing this regular study as a generic overview of what public employment services are doing. And I think it's good to have something like this also for the comparability that we have. However, when in my experience now and also cooperating with other international organizations, because we thought we'd do that to broaden the view, and I think we succeeded in doing so, even if it took a long time. What I think is good for the future when it comes to really taking out data for the day-to-day work and the strategic thinking of a public employment service is not to make too many of these generic studies, because they also let's say the time to live of the information that we gathered it last year in summer, and it's published now, so it's 1.5 years later. I kind of benchmarked with other international organizations and what they do, and that's more or less the range you use, 1 year or 1.5 years. And in a way this is good because it's accurate. On the other hand, it's in a way old information also. So I think we should combine this way of generic data mining and questionnaires with a more focused and a quicker way of concentrating on one specific topic. For example, we did that back in 2013. We made a smaller survey with the OECD about long-term unemployment. So that was kind of a very targeted topic just on that. With a questionnaire, with some extra research, and with some interviews. And interviews, by the way, I recommend that to you too, and the researchers here among you will know that better than me. It's a good way, semi-structured interviews about a specific topic with experts in public employment services are a good way to get a lot of information. It's probably not good first-hand data information, like in a statistical sense, but it gives a lot of extra insight in how they're doing things, and it's also it's much easier to sell that, let's say, to other public employment services because it's more illustrative. So I think a combination of having like a reduced questionnaire for the future about the generic data, but invest the energy rather into making shorter studies about a specific topic and in a shorter time with international organizations. That is at least my learning from this one.
Okay, thank you very much. One more short question, because then we have to move. No, please, one more, but yes, please. Then we move on.
Thank you. It was very interesting what you were reporting this morning. I would like to know if it is possible to continue and how interested could be Inter-American Development Bank, or for example ILO or other organization could support Waves to continue, because I think there is a lot of material and we shouldn't spend a lot of money and let it just in the air. I think we have to continue. It's a must, so we could propose other kind of studies, maybe, and other clusters and things like this.
Want to comment?
Yes, I mean, I think it's a capacity issue, of course. I think from now, and that's a question for the management, not for me. I was just doing the work, but I think that Waves cannot do that alone. I think to deliver quality studies, it's very difficult to do it alone. In the past, Jean-Pierre Alix was doing it. He was doing it very good, but he was spending a lot of time on it. And I think it's better to spread that capacity. And also, it's always good to have someone with the experience. Jean-Pierre Alix had the experience in doing it. In the future, we probably don't have someone, I don't know. But I think it's a good idea to combine that with international organizations, and they're interested in investing in this topic because they don't have a hold on public employment service information. I think that's our unique selling point, that we can retrieve those kind of informations in a pretty comprehensive and then rather quick way. So I think we should go on that track. The Inter-American Development Bank in particular was very interested to do that study because it's for them the first time that they mine this kind of data among their public employment services. And in Latin America, most of them are not very developed. They have a very low range of basic services, and they want to use this study also as a tool to promote it within the ministries, that public employment services in other parts of the world are more powerful and have a stronger governing power. So it's also good for international organizations, of course.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'm pretty sure that you will come across the study many times, many of you here, so there will be more opportunities to discuss. So thank you very much, Michael and Miguel. And now we move on to the next topic.